All right. Well, we got Coach Barnes here, so go ahead and fire away.
Are you going to start, Coach, and tell us how you're doing, or?
Sure. So first, this has been, gosh, we haven't had one of these in a while. It's just unprecedented times where I did not think what are we, August 15th? I didn't think we'd be in the same situation as we were in March, but, I'm just a little bit more optimistic at this point because now at least we have a date and now our players are coming back. So I'm super excited to see the players' faces. I just got back from McHale, actually the Davis Center. We were doing some movement out there. So it's good just to have the players here. Still we don't have a lot of answers, but at least we got our players back. We're going to be able to start lifting, be on the court soon in a couple months. So I think it's good for the players to be here and have some kind of normalcy.
So even all the international players are back?
They're not all back yet, but everybody will be back within the next couple of days. So someone's coming in, Mara's coming in tonight. Next week, Helena and Marta, but then pretty much everybody's here. We have I think we have 11 players here so far.
What's that process like? Like, what kind of things do you have to do to get them here? I know travel is banned from a lot of those countries.
Well, it was for a while. The crazy thing is they're coming to a worse place. so it's a lot on all their countries. It's a lot better, and then they come here. It's like we still haven't resolved our problem. But like Spain, it's escalated a little bit. But like where Helena's at and Marta and Sevilla, it's like there's not a lot of cases. So they're actually coming to a spot. So their parents were kind of like, okay, is it safe and stuff like that. But we're doing all the right things here. For like a month and a half, they couldn't even get flights. And Tara, because, overseas, like in Australia, you get 600 cases. It's like, the country kind of shuts down. We have like 1,000 a day and we're just kind of flowing with no mask. But she might have to fly through New Zealand. So it's just, there's limited flights. The flights are extremely expensive, but it's just been a little bit of a process. But now it's finally, people have tickets and are coming. So.
I wanted to ask about that January date, Adia. With Dave was talked a little bit about non-conference maybe being possible. Do you think it is with that late date?
I do think so. I think just because, so I wasn't surprised at all. I mean, given the situation and what we're dealing with right now still, I wasn't surprised about the date being moved to January 1st. Because I just thought, how do you have kids play right now in the middle of pandemic when the numbers aren't going down? I think that's kind of the main thing is we care about our athletes, so we need to do what's right. I think we can still play a non-conference. Dave and I have talked a lot about it. We're very optimistic about it. Because to me, what's the problem with pushing everything back? It's already pushed back.
The WNBA, do you think you can work with those dates?
Yeah, I mean, what do you mean work with? You mean?
Well, the draft in April.
Yeah.
How far back can you go?
Well, I think that, yeah. So, and I don't know if that would be pushed back later or if that can't change. But I think even if you went January, February, March, April, I think you could still accomplish it. I think you can accomplish the same thing. Maybe they get drafted and they go 2 weeks later. I don't know. And that's going to be probably a challenge because I've heard some talks about May Madness. So I don't know. But I am optimistic. And maybe it's something where we don't play the full non-conference. Maybe we play 10 games instead of 13 or something like that. But Dave and all those coaches, we all want to play a non-conference. Because for me personally, we don't want to go into the Pac-12. That's our first game. Like, I don't want my first game like UCLA or USC. I'd rather have it be a non-conference opponent.
So with that, oh, sorry, Coach.
No.
With that non-conference, how would that look? Would it be if you shortened it regionalized to try to keep you guys on the West Coast, or?
Yeah, I think so. And there's so many questions. I have no idea, but we're pretty much regional anyways. So we don't have one game that's across the country. Like, so for us, if we played a non-conference, we can drive to LA. We have a tournament in LA. We have a tournament in Vegas. So we're already regional. We try to do that strategically anyways because of cost. In the non-conference, we don't want to be traveling across the country if we don't have to. So, and I think that also some of that stuff might like take care of itself because like, for instance, we have Chicago State coming back. They're doing a return to us. I don't think that they'll be able to fly this far. So that might be like the 3 games we need to eliminate. And for me, I want to play in a non-conference because we have a strong non-conference schedule. We're playing Texas. We're playing Gonzaga. We're playing in the LMU tournament against Arkansas. And we're playing in a Vegas tournament that could be against LSU, Missouri State. So for me, we have a really good team, and I want to play a strong non-conference and get ready for the Pac-12.
So Adia, you had to go through the process of, at the end of the season, ending the season, before the NCAAs, and then now I know none of us thought we were going to be sitting here in the fall thinking that games still weren't going to be played, but, how did the players take it that, still possibly as much as half of their season could have gone away?
Yeah.
I mean, were they just happy to have something, or how did they take that news?
Well, so as a coach, this has been like the hardest year coaching. The hardest day I had was telling the players the season's over. And then fast forward, I didn't think I'd be having a situation like this now. So that's hard. But I think that all the uncertainty for the last 4 or 5 months has been more difficult. Just from a player standpoint, they had no idea. People were in different situations in every city. So in like Turkey, Cheval's on lockdown. In LA, Samaje's on lockdown in Long Beach. But then other people have more freedom where they're at. So I think just having some kind of normalcy and bringing them back has been a positive thing. Now, it was hard talking to the team and saying, okay, it's postponed until January 1. But for us, when I look at the big picture, it's not really a lot of time. So we were already phasing in now. Our phase in, so let's say we're starting next week, we would have had 3 weeks of a phase in, and then we would have slowly been on the court because we don't know what the players have been doing this whole time. So it's a really slow process. So when you think about that 6 weeks is really short because the phasing in is 3 or 4 weeks. So it's really only, instead of us starting end of September, we're probably starting end of October for our 20 hours, I'm assuming, with the calendar. So I think they've been waiting so long. I'm challenging our players to be mentally, physically strong, get better at something right now. And for me, I don't mind practicing. We're not going to practice our 20 hours for 4 months, but I don't mind having a little bit more time to practice and prepare our team because we have a chance to get better. So I don't think it changes. Now, where it will change is if we're not to play non-conference. I think that's going to suck if that happened, excuse my bluntness, but I don't think that will happen because I think that no one just wants to go straight into their conference. Because if we're delayed, why not delay it and play our whole schedule? Even from a financial standpoint, I think by then we're going to be in a way different situation. The numbers will be down. I think by then we'll have more fans. I think people are more comfortable. Hopefully there's a vaccination. So I think we'll be in a very different situation in January. So I'm optimistic. I really feel we're going to play. I know I'm pretty positive we're going to play. Don't quote me on that, please. But I really feel we're going to play, and I think we're going to play with fans. Now, how many, I don't know. I'm really confident basketball will play because we have a lot of time. I mean, September, October, November, December, we have 5 months.
Adia, do you think those tournaments are really going to help you, though, the non-conference tournaments, because the level of competition is going to be different than some of the early games where you ordinarily just use it to kind of warm people up and get them used to playing. But being thrown into a couple of non-conference tournaments prior to being thrown into Pac-12 play, that's got to help.
Yeah, it for sure helps. And we've kind of scheduled those conferences strategically because it's like a Pac-12 weekend. So there's no doubt it helps. It helps for the chemistry. We have some new players on the team. We've just introduced a 5th-year player who's going to play a lot, Trinity. And we've introduced some new faces like Bendu. She could potentially, if she wins a waiver, she could play. Shayna hasn't played. So for the chemistry of the team and your cohesiveness, it helps. And I think for us, just the playing a strong non-conference also helps. So we have Texas with Vic Schaefer is going to be a very good Texas team. And just, we're playing some good teams. I think that'll kind of tell us where we're at. Because this is a year we can be very special. So I want to use this time to get better, stronger, and I want to use it to our advantage. So I'm challenging our players, and we're trying to grow in different ways right now, even if it's not on the court.
Coach,
Go ahead.
I had to step out for a quick second, so I apologize if this was asked, but this is a super exciting time for you. What is your timetable as far as coaching and when you're going to get back and all that?
Yeah, so just for me personally, you're talking about?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so my time, so people think I'm crazy. So I'm going to be judged after someone writes about this. But so I'm delivering on September 15th. And so I'll take about 2 weeks off. I know people are like, you're crazy. I am probably crazy. That's why I coach. But like for me, we're not in the office all day. So like I'll come back after 2 weeks. Am I going to be out there at the pad? No, I'm not for like a few more weeks, but I'll take about 2 weeks off. Just I'll structure it to where I'll kind of do some workouts before that, take it off, and then go back. And I'm a trooper. I'm pretty tough, so I think I can handle that.
So what will the timeline, what is your timeline for, let's go back to the basketball, right?
Okay.
By the way, congratulations, and I appreciate you announcing that on our show. It gave us a big boost. So what does the basketball timeline look like for the rest of the year leading to January? Do you guys have that yet?
No, we don't. So the timeline I know right now, which can all change because it's all fluid. So we are now phasing in. So like today, our players did movement. They're getting tested as soon as they get in after they isolate for a couple of days. So it's no longer the 14-day isolation. It's like about a 7-day isolation. They come here, they get tested, and then after they get tested in their physicals, they're able to start to a phase 1, which is like outdoor with space with a small group. So today we had 5. We're like 30 feet apart in Davis, so it's open. It's just us. You get temperature checks when you walk in. You do some kind of movement because we don't know where people are at. So it's a very slow phase in. And then next week they'll phase to in Davis Center. They'll be lifting, but not with weights, with movement. And then they'll be testing again. So it's a very slow process for about 3 weeks because we also want to make sure all the protocols being followed. Now we are a very different university. We're doing everything right. I love the fact that we have a heart surgeon as our president. So we have a huge advantage. He knows what he's talking about from the medical side. So we're on the cutting edge of all this stuff. No one else is doing the type of stuff we're doing, and we're doing it the right way. So that's why you see the numbers so low here with our athletes. But so they'll phase in for about 3 weeks. Now after that, if they can adhere to all the protocol, they stay safe, they're doing all that, then they have proof that you can start working in the weight room in small groups, and then probably basketball. So the basketball was probably going to look like the first 2 or 3 weeks in that phase 3, it's going to be shooting. We're not going to go and start doing sprints because we just don't know the level of fitness the last 5 months. So it'll be shooting, and then it'll be gradually, depending on what we're allowed to do, which we don't know yet. It's all based on, the school basically. And then it kind of goes from there. So there's just so many things we don't know. I just know we're starting and we're able to get them in there and see each other. And I think that's been really helpful for the players.
What kind of conversations have you had with Lauren Ware now that volleyball and basketball are going to be played in the same semester and she's going to have to pick? And also, from what I understand, she's on a basketball scholarship. So does that factor into which sport she'll play?
No, that doesn't factor because Dave and I have a good relationship and we automatically take the scholarship. So that's kind of just how it is. We pay all the bills, but that's okay. So Dave should buy me dinner, right? He got a good player for free. But we haven't really talked because all this stuff happens so fast, but I think she'll be deciding probably this weekend because it's going to look different. It's going to be if she stays with basketball, it'll be her first time that she'll be in the non-conference, the off season with us. Because every other year she'd be off season with volleyball. So I believe she's talking to Dave this afternoon. We'll have a conversation this weekend. We kind of talked a little bit briefly about it, but that's a decision she has to make.
And Adia, I know that we're in this unprecedented time, but from the beginning, and this is who you are, you've always been optimistic. You've always said that, you think you're going to play, you're going to have a season, you don't care when it is, you're just going to follow the rules and you're ready to get out and go whenever it is. What do you think in your experiences has sort of, what experiences sort of made you this way that you're just always that optimistic?
Well, I just don't think, if we're living in a world where in 5 months we have the same problem, then we're probably going to want to all move to Europe or solve us from. Because that's like such a bigger problem. Like I have confidence in this country and that we're doing the right thing. We're not going to deal with this in 5 or 6 months, or it's going to be a different level. So that's my confidence now that we have had that confidence so far. But I just think that I don't think we're not going to play because with basketball, we have so much time. Now, if we had a season that started in a month, I'd probably be a lot less optimistic because there's so much. And I think everything's predicated off football. And that's kind of the way it is. So I think football will play, and I really do. I think that whether it's fans or no fans or limited fans, whether it's 30%, 20%, I think they'll still do it for athletics. Now, I don't think, like, I'm surprised, honestly, like the SEC and other conferences, I'm surprised they're still playing right now because of the medical advice. And so that's interesting to me. And I think in the end, everybody will be on the same protocol. I think it's just going to take different things for that to happen. But for basketball, in 5 months, I really think we'll play. I think that people will come to games. Maybe we can't sell out. Maybe they won't look like that. But I really have a feeling that we're going to be able to have 10,000 people in the arena with some kind of spreading, some kind of social distance, checking temperature checks, mask. I really think we're going to play. Like at that point, are we playing with maybe gator masks? Maybe. But I think if you ask any athlete, like if they want to play with a gator or not play, they're going to all play with masks. I mean, I'll coach the mask if I have to. If they have to have a special whistle for a referee at the mask, we do what you got to do. But I don't think all of college athletics is going to stop. I think there's a way to do it safely later. I think by then, I'm very confident we'll have a vaccination. And I think things are going to look really different. I mean, I don't know if you guys think the same thing, but I don't know if I'm just super optimistic about it, but maybe I am, and you guys are like, she's crazy, she's got pregnant brain. But I just really feel like, I feel like we're going to play. And is it for sure going to play all non-conference? No, it might be 10 games. It might be 7 games. You choose what it looks like and play the conference. But, I mean, I don't think an athlete would mind if you have May Madness. I don't think anybody in the country cares. I think we all just want sports, but we want kids to be healthy. We want kids to be safe. I just don't think you can have kids go into play and compete when we have like a problem and we can't get people to wear masks in our cities. It's like, I just think I don't know how you have kids play in this situation. So.
Adia, as we were headed towards the decision that got made, a few days ago, what did you know? What were you hearing? At what point did you have a pretty good sense of what happened? I guess, what was it, Tuesday?
Yeah.
Was going to happen?
The week before, and really a couple of days before, knew it was going to happen. So I was not surprised at all. A different situation. Let's say across the country numbers are drastically declining, and that decision made, I would have been very surprised. But given the situation in the world right now, what's going on, we're finding out all these things. People aren't following protocol for testing, just having athletes back. It wasn't a surprise at all for me. It's just the safest way. I don't think you can have athletes back in a pandemic. And I'm not talking about Arizona because we're doing stuff the right way, but we're also spending a phenomenal amount of money to do it. And but I just don't think you can bring kids back and not test them. I don't think you can have athletes in contact sports and not test them. And then medical advice is stay away from people, distance with a mask. So I think I wasn't surprised. I wasn't surprised given the situation. Now, if you were to ask me, is football canceled? I'd be very surprised. I don't think it's going to be canceled. I think that everybody's going to have to get on the same page because of something or another will happen. And I think that they'll play football in January. Now, the challenge will be, how do you play all the sports at once, this and that? But that is a good problem to have, and I don't think anybody will care as long as the sports are happening. Maybe we get less TV, but I think also fans, I think the city, I think people want sports. And I think that people also want athletes dying, or having heart problems long term or something, we're putting them in those situations. So I don't think this is going to be a situation in January. So I think we'll play football. And whether the schedule looks different or not, I think we'll play men's basketball, women's basketball. And I just think whether it's in a bubble, whether it's going to one spot, whether it's men and women traveling together, I think there's so many options that I think we're going to play sports. Does anybody not agree with me at all?
No, that was going to be
optimism or what?
No, that was going to be my question about a bubble. What would you say are the kind of the pros and the cons of playing in a bubble?
I mean, if that's going to enable us to play, I wouldn't care. Do I necessarily want to be in a bubble for months? No, but if we're going to play basketball that way, that's fine. I don't know how. Well, and it's funny because on our Pac-12 call that was brought up and that was talked about. There was different things that were talked about. Maybe a scenario where we go one place for the weekend. And that's kind of like the bubble for that time. And it's like us, men's basketball, and there's like 5 games every day, one spot where you're kind of isolated for that week, and then we're flying with the men charter or whatever. I've heard those scenarios coaches brought up. Then the bubble, like the NBA and WNBA, that was brought up. I don't know how much more challenging. I don't know financially how much that stuff costs, but I know in the Pac-12, they're exploring options all around the West Coast. So these are all things being thought of. And for me, whatever it takes for us to be able to play, I think all the kids can basically go online. I mean, Cal, Stanford, they're already online. And it's so, there's so much like leniency because there's so many changes now. The professors would let the kids go online. So I think that's not an issue. And then we're already paying for stuff, we're saving to travel. So maybe that money goes towards the bubble. I think there's going to be a lot of these scenarios. I don't know which one it's going to be, but I think I think the challenging thing for any school now is it's not everything's happening with us. We're testing, we're distance, we're doing all those things. I think it's just, it's the rest of the day. And it's the other 22 hours, so we're doing a ton of education. And that's really what we can do in the given situation. But Arizona's been successful. So for me, I think the more surprising thing for me is how come every other school isn't doing what Arizona is? We've had like 3 out of 200 and something, we've had 3 tests positive out of like 200 and something people. So I don't know why there isn't a universal protocol for every school to have to do that. So
that bubble, that bubble that you just talked about sounds like a series of mini Pac-12 tournaments. From the fans' perspective, gosh, that would be spectacular.
Yeah, I mean that was just what was brought up, but there's like no answer. There's so many scenarios and so many things, but that wasn't. I think Tara Vandiver brought that up. I know they brought that up with the men on the men's side. And I think all those are realistic. That's why I really feel like basketball will happen. Because just bigger arenas, I mean, we don't have to go to capacity. We can go to 7,000 people and socially distance, and we're masked. And then I think in the Pac-12, what I'm proud of the leadership in the Pac-12 is because we did something bold that other people weren't willing to do. And we said, hey, we're taking the medical advice and we're doing this. And I thought that was a very bold thing to do that like not everybody's doing around the country. And it's just surprising me that more places aren't doing it.
If Lauren does play volleyball, how will that affect your program and then also her because she would lose a whole year of development with basketball?
Yeah, so and I hadn't thought a ton about that because initially with volleyball playing, we were going to get Lauren, and when I heard the volleyball condensed season, I knew we were going to get Lauren. But I think that so she'll have a longer off season. So from a basketball standpoint, her coming with us, she has our whole next 4 months to get familiar with basketball. Because every other year, if she plays volleyball, she'll come into basketball late. So I think that's a huge advantage for us and for her. I think that maybe for her and just looking at just the whole situation, it might be better. She's just coming off injury to play one sport, and then she'll have her 5th year to play volleyball if she starts with us with basketball. So I think for her, that's just something she has to decide. I wouldn't be surprised if she chose to be with basketball this year because of those other reasons, and she won't have an off season with us for the next 3 years. So, I'm hoping that's the decision she makes, but I don't want it to be a pressure thing. I want it to be what she feels right for the right time. I know she's roommates with Mara and Tara, so her basketball roommates. So I think there's just a lot of pluses to her playing just basketball this year. On top of she's a very great player. So on top of that.
So Adia, many of the other Pac-12 schools have been back practicing in some form for the past month. And you guys and the California schools really haven't. I think USC might be there and they might be just doing lifting or strength and conditioning. But up until this point, when everything was, now you're all sort of like pushed back. Did you see this as a little bit of an advantage for them and a disadvantage for you? And now do you think everybody's on the same page because y'all have the same amount of time now to practice and to train and get ready for the season?
Yeah, my initial thought was, of course, like a little bit upset because I thought we had a huge disadvantage. Because I'm talking to my friends in the SEC and stuff, and they've been practicing for like 10 weeks. So I'm like on the court and stuff. So I did think that was a little bit of a disadvantage. And then I saw half the Pac-12, like ASU, even Colorado, a lot of teams were practicing. So I did think that was a little bit of a disadvantage. But then when I looked at the flip side, a lot of places are starting up, stopping again. So I felt we're doing stuff safe the right way. And is a month going to do or die? No. But, you know, like from a competitive standpoint, of course, you do think about that. You know, because I think what the Pac-12 coaches what was brought up was that, you know, like in the SEC and some other conferences, they've been practicing for a long time. And we're not really touching our kids. So if they keep the same calendar, because as of right now, the compliance calendar is the same. Like, so we're limited. Let's say football's in there 20 hours. Everybody else is in different hours, and that's not going to change until all that stuff's voted on. So if the SEC keeps their same schedule, they could potentially have 5-on-5 full practices in a month and a half. And that would be a big disadvantage if everybody isn't shut down, because then potentially they can be practicing basketball 2 or 3 months before we can. So that, I think, you know, as coaches, we did voice our concern about that, because that's, you know, if we're all competing for a national championship, they have an advantage. But then I guess you got to look at the health and safety. What's the priority? Because I don't want to be that coach. Of course, I want to play basketball. I want to start. I mean, I'm delivering in a month, but I still would have been out there with my team with distance. But, you know, I don't want to be that coach that has to call, you know, like Jones mentioned this to you, PJ. I don't want to be that coach that has to call a parent and tell them like their kid passed away from COVID or their kid's in the hospital. I don't want to be that parent. I mean, that coach that calls the parent. So that's something that I don't want to have to do, and I don't want to be in that situation. I don't want something like that to happen. So in that sense, I'm glad we waited, because we're doing it right, and we're proving that. So knock on wood.
So you already have 3 commitments for the 2021 class. I know you can't talk about them specifically, but when all is said and done, like, what do you want that class to look like?
So it's shaping up the way I want it. You know, we have a post, we have some really good guards. Potentially, if things go right, cross my fingers, that we could potentially add another commitment. I'm hoping in the next month or 2. So if we add this other commitment, the class would be I'd be very, very happy. You know, right now, I think a lot of players were waiting because they want to go to campus. And that's the challenge for us at Arizona. Most of the kids that we're recruiting right now are like, let's say East Coast, they're far, or in the South. Because right now, like just our footprint, so our geographical footprint is like California, like this area, Arizona, obviously. But it's been kind of down in this class. So it's kind of forced us to go east, like New York, or south, like Atlanta. And so the disadvantage for us is those players haven't been to campus. So we knew we'd potentially add someone late because people are waiting, wanting to visit. Now the calendar just got pushed back. We're in a dead period right now, so we're not talking to players, but pushed back to September 31st. So realistically, these players aren't going to come on visits. So we're asking someone to sign from across the country without being on campus. So for me, that's a really big disadvantage. And we might lose some kids because of that. Now, very confident if they were to visit, we'd get some of these kids. So that's kind of the only thing, but we will sign one more player probably. And then I'll be very, very happy for the class to be another top class.
You guys got anything else?
What's like the latest on Bendu? I know she got the hardship waiver to get her year back, but I know you were kind of saying that even if she's eligible, she might redshirt anyway. So I know you haven't probably gotten to see where she is at this point, but what do you?
Not yet. She looks good. Like obviously, she always has a body, so she cannot do anything for a year and still look like she's like super cut up and she's just a freak athlete, strong. But we don't really know where she's at yet. She did some functional tests right now, and she's kind of easing in. So I think the one thing is, so like something really big. I think another thing I'm very proud of Arizona. We've had some transfers. I don't like the whole, I don't believe that you transfer and you like trash your old coaches. I don't allow like our kids to do that because I think that it's a small world and it's a small community. And I think that stuff you end up wanting to work in the business. So I don't think you burn bridges. So I am not someone, you won't see kids come in my program and be bashing another program or making lies up or doing whatever people do nowadays to play. Because I've been on the other end of some of that stuff and I don't like it. So I'm not someone that allows that. So my thing is, if you tell the truth or if the situation happened or something, and then it's okay, Jay, I don't mind. JD's kicked his mom out of the room. That's shady.
That's my grandma.
You can't do that to your mom, Jay. Let's go. So he was like, get out.
My mother-in-law, so I can do it to my mother-in-law.
You can't do that. Anyways, I saw that in the corner of my eye. So for us, if it's the situation you're telling the truth, something happened, but we're not someone that like, we want to do things the right way. And I am big on that because like for me, when it's happened to me and something has been told, like I was like, that's not true. I am really hurt about that. So we don't do that. That's why you see our kids usually sitting out. So I'm not going to say, ask our clients, go gun ho, this and that. Like, I don't believe in that. So anyway, so if she gets it, she gets it. And if she doesn't, like, I like the fact we can develop her for a year. So I have confidence in what we do off the court and in what we do like in the off season, and she'll get better. So we don't push for those things. So I just like, that's kind of my stance on that. I don't believe in all that stuff, but I just think it's bad karma.
And with this extension of the dead period, it's such a long, it's like an extra month or whatever, a little longer. How does that, obviously it affects these players who want to sign, in November, but how does it affect you for the other classes that are behind them?
Well, it doesn't really affect for the other classes. All the top players always sign early. Now that timetable could change because they can't go visit, but I think that most of the players, their timetable won't change. I think they'll just end up going somewhere familiar. So it hurts us because if you're from Atlanta, you love us. You would have came here if you probably could have seen us or seen campus and stuff. You might not come here because of that. So what happens is you end up choosing somewhere familiar or choosing somewhere within 5 hours you could drive to, because you could potentially drive to a campus now and you could go see it without having any contact with coaches. So I think that we have a disadvantage because we don't have a really strong state and we don't have, we don't have a whole bunch of people right down the street. So I think that hurts us. I think the star players will start, and we saw this during COVID. During the first break, during the first shutdown, there was a lot of kids that moved their timeline. So it was because of that. And all the kids in the transfer portal, that also put pressure on the 2021 class. So now I think there's probably, I'd say out of the top kids in the country, there's probably another 10, 15 that we're all recruiting that are waiting to sign, but I think they'll sign somewhere sight unseen. Like if we get one of these kids to sign in the next few weeks or commit to us, they've never been to Arizona. It's just been virtual and stuff. And it's hard to do that. So it won't affect the next class because by all the top kids basically being committed somewhere, now it affects us because when I know who I have in this 21 class, I can look for a different position in 22 class. So, but we're still recruiting the 22s anyways, and we're doing everything virtually. So right now we've had so many Zooms and we have multiple a day, and we have Zoom recruiting stuff. We have Zoom academic calls. We have virtual tours on campus. So it's a completely different world for coaches. It's been a challenge. I mean, so coaches this year, it's been tough. The news in March, changing the whole recruiting. Now it's been a different world for all of us. But sometimes.
And did anything ever prepare you for this?
No, no, because it's never been anything like this. Like, I think the hard thing is not having answers to so many things. Like, I don't know when we're going to start our 20 hours. I don't know when we're going to start 5-on-5. I don't know when exactly we're going to play. I don't know if we're playing non-conference. Like, there's no answers to anything. I think that's the hard thing. You don't have, so you have to keep your players optimistic. You have to keep them engaged. You have to keep them just thinking about the bigger picture, and that's hard to do. I mean, we were on Zoom for months. So I think that's a challenging thing as a coach. You're trying to be creative. You're trying to, like, we're doing a book club right now. You're thinking of all kinds of things under the sun, like to just keep them engaged, you know, keep them from being on Zoom half asleep or like this, you know. So it's been a challenge, and they're 18 to 22-year-olds. Like we're out more optimistic. We're older and we're like can think ahead, but they're kids.
Do you
So
see any of this maybe carrying over to when things go back to a relative normal in terms of Zoom meetings, virtual tours? Do you see that being used in the future?
I do. So because even though stuff's kind of going back to somewhat normal, this is like our new norm. So I don't know the next time we're going to actually be in office with 10 people. So I think it's going to be like this for like the next 6 months. I think we're going to still Zoom because like for me personally, I don't really want to be in office with 10 people. Like I know what I'm doing. I don't know what everybody else is doing, especially because I'm really high risk right now. So as a coach, you can do everything. You do everything on your phone and on your computer. So you can do it at home. My challenge is if you have kids and stuff, that's a challenge. For moms, this whole Zoom stuff is a nightmare. But I think it's the new norm. I don't think we'll be in our offices like that for like another 9 months. I think we'll be in there. Like I'm phasing people in. So a couple days a week, I'll have 2 people in there for stuff. I don't know when we'll all be there. I don't know when we'll have team meetings in one room. I think we're a long ways away from that. So this is kind of the new norm. So it's funny because I'm increasing my internet and I'm changing all this stuff at home because Zoom doesn't work if there's 2 or 3 Zoom. Isn't that crazy? I never thought we'd have so many devices. Like I'm changing my stuff because I know this is our new reality. I mean, even for you guys, none of us were prepared for this. And then if they're kids, like they definitely weren't prepared because no one thought it'd be like this. I didn't even think so. But my thing is, it is what it is. What are you gonna do about it? There's nothing you can do about it. So you make the best out of it. I have like different like NBA coaches on Zoom. You make it exciting, but I think you find ways to get better. Like I think this is gonna be a separator. You're either gonna grow in this time mentally. It doesn't have to be. You don't have to grow necessarily. Like you may not get stronger, may not become a better basketball player. But if you improve your mental game, you're gonna be better when you come back. So I'm challenging our kids to use this time to improve in something. I know I've gotten better. I've never had this much time to study our teams, to rewatch stuff, to talk to different coaches. So I've gotten better in this time. I'm gonna be more prepared for my team next year. Usually we're traveling all over the world recruiting. So I think it's gonna be a separator. You're either gonna be better and then you can work yourself in shape, or you're gonna be worse. But I'm hoping that this re-energizes people because you get burned out. I'm hoping that they don't take things for granted when they come back. They're more enthusiastic. They're more excited about basketball and about playing. Maybe they're working a little harder. So I'm hoping it does that. I mean, if not, they're just wasting time. So, yeah.
We got time for one more if anybody wants. If not, all right, guys.
Hopefully I'll see you guys all before I have the baby. Hopefully. So I can get rid of my basketball. So I want to get rid of my basketball, but